Hi, my name's Kathryn Evans, and talk to you today about how to build relationships with connections that you build online. So authentic relationships seem to be more and more complicated, especially for the younger generation that likes to sit in their rooms and play online games. My kids don't leave their rooms a lot of the day. So does the thought of building an authentic relationship offline with an online contact seem daunting or even complicated? In order to stand out in the noisy world and be successful, you need to adapt quickly and consider following the 8 tips that I'm going to give you guys to beat the people that are hiding behind their screens online and just living through the messenger or spam to connect with their audience. And I'm here to tell you that social selling is alive and well, can and does take place of the traditional cold call. So what better topic to talk about today than relationships? So whether you guys are spending time with family or friends, you've surrounded yourself with people that you consider to have a personal relationship with, and you're investing in that relationship by experiencing a mutual time and a mutual experience with each other. You guys have already done the personal mission statement that we talked about in our digital personal branding. You understand your values, you understand your vision for your business or for your life. And you've been through the 5 things that I talk about, right? This is number 5. Number 1, you're building your online digital personal brand. You're defining your online goals. You're making sure you know who your target audience is. Number 4, you're engaging with that target audience with valuable content. And number 5, you're taking those online connections and moving them over to memorable relationships where you can nurture and experience some sort of commonality with the people. So many of you know my story already, and I'm going to just use the story as an example of how I took 3,000 online connections that I didn't meet or know, and how I turned those online connections into relationships, aka my family. So let's go back in the 1960s. So in the late 60s, what was going on? Inflation was happening, the Vietnam War, the Soviet Union and the US were racing to space, riots were happening everywhere, and my mom and dad were making a baby. So the funny part of that story is that my dad didn't want to be involved in raising a child. And so it wasn't until July of 2018 that I actually met my father. So I chose Ancestry.com to find my family. Really good friends of mine had just found his biological mom, so I thought it was going to be a really great opportunity for me to do the same DNA test. When my DNA results came back, it was confirmed that I had a family. And not only did I have a family, I was connected to, at that time, 1,000 close relatives that spanned between 6th cousins up to immediate family. I am now connected on Ancestry.com to over 78,000 people in their database. Like that, those numbers are like mind-blowing. But at the time that I did the test, there were only 1,000 people that were in that 6th generation up to immediate family. So imagine going from an only child with dead parents, right, to finding that you have this 1,000 connections. So why is that story relevant? Well, it's important because connections in your network, right, that you're using, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Twitter, Instagram, you have this number of connections and you have some commonality with them. But how are you going to take those connections, move them through some series of messaging or interactions, and actually foster them into a relationship? That's why this story is important, because I did just that. I turned those stone cold connections into relationships. And so we're going to call those 1,000 people my target audience, right? So today, that would be the 3,000 people. I didn't know them, but I had someone in common with them. They didn't know me. They didn't know how I found them. They didn't know my story. I did have something to sell them, right? I was selling me. They were not aware that they had a problem. which is a lot of what happens when you're socially selling, right? You're connecting to people. They may not be aware that they have a problem. That problem that my 3,000 connections had was that they didn't have me or my sweet boys in their life. So let's take a step back and think about where you are today with your network and where you're fishing for your target market. You can't fish in a barrel with stink bait if the fish that you're fishing for like worms, right? And the opposite is true. You can't fish in a barrel with worms when the only thing the fish are biting on is stink bait. So you really need to make sure that the target market that you're going after exists in the connections that you're creating on your social platform. Are you connecting to a group of people that have a common interest with you? What is that common ground that's creating the association that you're going to turn into a relationship? And do you have something you know they need, yet maybe they're not aware of the problem? So I'm just kind of setting up for the common scenarios that exist with your online connections. So I wanted to define connections versus relationships. So we have a clear working definition for these 8 tips that I'm going to provide for you. A connection is a relationship in which a person, thing, or idea is linked or associated with something else. So a personal connection occurs when one life form takes the time to acknowledge another. You show non-threatening interest, right? And the person positively responds. So that would just be a positive connection. It's not very deep. There just is some sort of connection that happened. Now, it's interesting if you think about what a professional or business connection is. The definition that came up when I was doing my homework was a business connection involves a relation between businesses or humans which yield profits or gains, and some activity which contributes directly or indirectly to the earning of profits. It's different, right? When you're creating that professional relationship, you're not there to just make friends with them. You're actually there to create some sort of a transaction, which would result in a profit or a gain. Let's let those definitions just sizzle with you for a minute. And let's go back to the scenario that I'm talking about where I had this network and I was going in for the close, right, which was trying to find my father from this pool of DNA that was in Ancestry.com. The 2 profiles that I was connected to were being managed by somebody, the 2 people that I was connected to. I started making outbound messages through the platform, 0 response. There was nothing happening. Does that sound familiar for you when you're doing some outbound marketing or sales or cold calling? When the ultimate decision maker has a gatekeeper, you're cold calling them, you're sending email messages, you're making phone calls in, and you can't reach the decision maker that you're trying to connect with. What do you do next? What do you do when you can't get in front of them? That's like the ultimate cold call. That's why social selling is so important, because you can take that ultimate cold call where you don't know anything about the person and they don't know anything about you, and you can turn it into a connection, build a rapport, and then take it to a relationship. I'm going to talk about the 8 tips I can give you for building true, authentic relationships when you're taking those connections that you build online and you're turning them into some sort of profit or gain for business. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, reaching out to that person with some common interest that you have. So your goal here is to share an experience with the person. Here's some examples of questions or topics that I have used that have been successful. So you can't guess about what is interesting to the person. You actually have to ask them. So you could send them a message that says, what have you been working on for the week? How's your week been going? If you're a guy and you're into football, well, there's women that are into football as well, but I see your alma mater is playing my alma mater next week. Are you ready to get your butt kicked? I mean, just some fun. You could be playful even though you're working on a professional network, because you're being authentic when you're reaching for common ground about the person. So I have a story about one connection that I made. There was a gentleman in my network that had just posted on his profile that he was serving Moroccan food in his office for the day. And if anyone was around, they are welcome to stop in and have lunch with him. So I sent him a message and I said, oh my gosh, I love Moroccan food. Couscous is one of my favorite meals. I would love to visit Morocco someday. he replied. And then we had a conversation online, right? So that was just an example of how you could look for something common with a lead target or some connection where you could take that relationship from just having a number network. I'm connected to 40,000 people. Actually, the max people, in case you ever want to know, that you can connect with is 30,000 people on LinkedIn. That's just an example of how I was able to find a commonality with someone that I didn't know before and engage in somewhat meaningful conversation. Now, that's just like the beginning, right? That's a baby step in creating true relationships. The next thing is you want to try to get to know the person. So that's tip number 2. And you want to do your homework. It's not hard to find the digital footprint that people have today. So I have some tips, and these are going to be available once again for you to download, or you can drop a message after you watch the video. If you're in my course, these are all going to be available in the course. It's what we'll be talking about. But you're going to want to spend some time on the platform, your chosen platform, to find more information about the person and about the network that they're connected to. Where do they work? What's the name of the company? Has that company been in the news recently? Is it a company that you're following? Is it a company that you know somebody that works there? Where do they live? Maybe there's a big storm that's hitting. You're like, oh my gosh, I saw that you guys had a 5-foot snowstorm. Are you still digging yourself out? What topics do they comment on in their LinkedIn feed or in their Facebook feed? What kind of things are they interested in? And then as far as LinkedIn goes, you can see the groups that the people belong to, and they might be talking in. And if it's a common group that you also are involved in, you could say, hey, I see that you're in sales professionals group. Have you found that group to be very informative for you? Do you get great information out of that group? Those are just different examples that I can give to you to start. They're conversation starters, if you will. I have another story that I can share, and I've actually talked about this and I wrote about it in a blog. So I was flying one time on Southwest, and there was a young guy that was sitting in the center seat, real broad shoulders, so it was kind of hard, to finagle the three of us in the row. And I struck up a conversation, just genuine questions. What are you doing? Where are you from? What's going on? It turns out that he was in the military and he had a girlfriend in San Diego who was a Marine. He was flying into San Diego to propose to her. I was like, oh my gosh. So while we're talking, he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out the engagement ring in a box and he shows it to me. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. He had so many questions, right? He was in my network. He had a problem. I was the one that was going to help him solve the problem, which was, what's he going to do to propose? He hadn't really thought it through. Obviously, I didn't know the woman, but he started asking me questions like, should I get down on one knee? Should I wait till sunset? Are there any romantic restaurants nearby? Is there a park? Is there somewhere we can go to the ocean? It was so fun. We just planned his engagement at 40,000 feet or however high you are when you're in the airplane. I made sure to get his telephone number because I wanted him to text me the ring on her finger. It's so funny because he couldn't even wait until he got past the parking lot. He got down on one knee and proposed in the parking lot, and she said yes, and he sent me a picture of the ring on her finger, and it was so sweet. But those are just fun stories about how you can create relationships with people when you don't really know them. But if you really are authentic and take an interest in what their problem is that they're trying to solve and provide value to them, you can actually have a meaningful impact on them. So number 3, we're going to talk about is to give more and expect nothing. If we go back for a second to my DNA case, I had nothing to give these people. I didn't have any information on the family. Hey, I know your cousin Susie or Maria. I didn't have anything to offer these people. But what I did have was a quest to find my father. So I started asking information to other people on Ancestry, and it turned out that I uncovered 2 other people that also were looking for their fathers in the Nunez family. So I teamed up with those 2 people and we started doing some investigative work together, right? So I had nothing to give these guys, but I wanted to help them find their family members as well. Once again, I'm giving more and I was expecting nothing. And I was able to find actually both of them. I helped both of them find their fathers. One of them has been just a great story. So take the necessary time to understand the person that you're connecting with. And if you can't find common ground, reach out to your like connections to see if they actually know the person they're connected to. And you could say, hey, I really want to get to know Joey. Is there anything you could tell me about him? How do you know them? What do they do? What are they working on? And you might find so much information by looking for that common connection. And so my question to you is, what are you doing to help your network? How are you giving without looking for something to receive? Are you making sure that you're not just spamming them with, download my free checklist, or I have a free no obligation phone call for you to get on the phone with me? That's so spammy. That's not a true social selling. That's not building a true authentic relationship. That's just keeping somebody at arm's length as a connection. Number 4, we're going to talk about is sharing your network. So I often find that people on LinkedIn, let me put a pause on. As you know, one of the services that I offer is through LinkedIn is appointment setting, right? We have a team and we guarantee to put at least 10 appointments on your calendar a month. So my team reaches out to my connections, they put them on my calendar, and I get on the phone with them and I build authentic relationships with them. So as these conversations are taking place, I started to see a little bit of a consistent theme with people. So maybe there was an entrepreneur that was deciding that, they were tired of the bust-ass grind of being an entrepreneur and they wanted to go back to work. So their LinkedIn profile showed they were an entrepreneur, but really in the background, they were looking for a job. And then there's some people that I've been talking to that are super unhappy where they're working. When you first start talking to them, they have this big front. And then as I start asking discovery questions and peeling back the layers of the onion, they're like, I'm so unhappy where I am. I'm actually looking for a job. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what do I have to offer these people? And I really thought about it. And I said, okay, wait, if these people are looking for a job, they need an updated resume. They might need a career coach. And they definitely need to update their LinkedIn profile so that their LinkedIn profile is making them stand out from the crowd and attract the target market that they're looking for, which would be the form of a potential employer. So I looked through my network, I reached out to people, and I started looking for resume writers and career coaches. And obviously, I'm the one that can do the profile makeover. So I started vetting people that were in those categories. I interviewed them. I asked them for some references. I talked about to the people in my network, and I created this resource of 4 people that could either write resumes or be a career coach and help them move forward in their job search. So I created that as a resource, and I started calling these people back, and I said, hey, we talked about the fact that you were looking for a job. I have vetted 4 different people that I think could help you. I'd like to make an introduction. Would that be okay for you? Every one of them has said yes, and I think that I actually have hooked up 4 people. They had to ask. I found a solution for them, and I put them together. So that's a true example of giving more and expecting nothing, and sharing my network. So that kind of is a story that hits on both of those. So the next thing I want to talk about is using video. I'm afraid to get on video. Every time I do a video or something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, right? And I have sales reps that report to me, and they're also nervous to get on video. But I've encouraged them to do videos because I was the judge for the Women in Sales Awards. The finalists for those awards all incorporated video into their selling strategy. And I thought, oh my gosh, this younger generation is killing it by creating social relationships with people by actually using the technology that's out there. There's different ways that you can incorporate video to build these relationships, right? You don't have to get on screen if you're deathly afraid of it. You're going to get in front of the people anyway, eventually, if you're doing outdoor sales. If not, you may never get in front of them. But you could do a PowerPoint, right, with a voiceover. It's still a video. It's still them hearing you as a person, the intonation of your voice, providing value. It's something that you could send to them through email, or you could upload it in the platform. You could create a personal how-to video. Like, let's say that you're selling cell phones. People have been coming into the store and they all don't know how to use a certain feature, do a quick how-to video about how to use a feature, and you could shoot it out to your segmented audience. One of my reps now is doing what we call car wisdom. And so car wisdom could be, hey, I'm in your area. We're launching a new test. I want to tell you about the test. Here's what it does. I'll be dropping it off at the front desk. You weren't able to see me today. Boom, it's done. Or you might be sending a thank you note. Thank you so much for accepting me today on that first time appointment. It was a valuable insight for me for how your organization runs. I look forward to our next appointment. These are the things that I'm going to follow up on for you, and you get them that video. So some of the resources that you can use to create those videos before meetings or after meetings, I have 3 that I've experimented with. One is called Loom. The other one is called Bomb Bomb, and the one is called Bonjoro. So every time somebody sets an appointment with me, I get a reminder. I have an automated system in place. I get a reminder to create a video for them. I look at their LinkedIn profile. I look at something that we have in common or the reason why we actually connected in the first place. I tell them how excited I am to meet with them, and then I send the video out to them. That's something I've incorporated into my everyday selling strategy to make sure that I'm using tech to my advantage to take the connection from connection category and move it into relationships. So the next thing we just talked about was getting the connections on the telephone. That's when you can talk to them and say, hey, thank you so much for taking this call today. I want to just talk about why did you even accept the call? What's working today for you? What's not working? And then how are you going to fill in the gaps? Also, when I get those people on the phone call, I ask them if they would mind if I add them to my email list. So you can grow your email list by getting on the phone and creating those relationships with the people. No one's ever said no. And I use that as an opportunity to say, listen, I'm going to be sending out tips and tricks on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, how to use LinkedIn to grow your network, how to close business, whatever it is that I'm working on. If at any time you feel like this isn't valuable information, I would unsubscribe or give me your feedback and let me know what it is that I can do to provide valuable content to you in the future. Last thing I want to talk about today is always say thank you. So I did a survey, which is here. And if you guys want to see the statistics on my survey, and asked people about thank you notes, because I've always carried thank you notes with me, and I would hand write the thank you note to the person, a little bit about the conversation, and I drop it in the mailbox as soon as I was leaving a sales call. So 90% of the respondents said that thank you notes are a valuable part of building rapport. So if you're not sending thank you notes, either through email or through a card, there's only 10% of the people that don't think that that's valuable. 74% of the respondents said that thank you notes are actually sent less than 50% of the time. So if you're trying to stand out from the noisy world, 50% of your competition isn't sending thank you notes. So that puts you on the win category. 74%, we said that 86% received a thank you note in the form of email. Okay, that gives you a little bit of opportunity, right? You can actually send a handwritten thank you note. 47% of those same people said they would prefer to receive a handwritten note. Only 30% of the people said they prefer email. The other percentage said that they would either is okay for them. 23 said that it was equal. 56% of the people said that they would read the email. They would just read it, boom, deleted. 48% said that they would actually throw away a handwritten note. But 52% of the people that I surveyed said that they would save the thank you note. Perhaps they would share it with other people or other members of the team, and they would display it. So have you ever seen, a really cute thank you note? And in the kitchen of the lunchroom, maybe where you might have done a presentation, there's these cute thank you notes, right? That are pinned up on the board. They stay around. It's brand awareness. It's actually helping set you up and differentiate you from the crowd. That's it. I want to thank you so much and listening to the 8 tips to help you take those connections from just connections, move them over into the relationship building category, and ultimately grow your network, grow your revenue, and grow the people that you actually are authentically connected to. And ultimately turn your sales slumps into celebrated fist bumps. So thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate your time and consideration. Take care and have a great day.